Alex, I'm actually going to start with you, the CEO of Palantir, just to explain, does that mean no human intervention? Can you just explain how this would work and use Lowe's as an example?
Well, first of all, I'm delighted to be on the stage with what many people I believe to be one of the great entrepreneurs of my lifetime and a patriot. And it means a lot to me to be here. So we have a product called Ontology. You could think of it as essentially a digital representative of your enterprise, including security model, which essentially takes the disabilities out of large language models and allows you to move decision making to the front line with people, without people, depending on how you're doing it. In the context of Lowe's and other enterprises, it allows you to essentially automate decision making, like how would your supply chain work, how would it work if it changed, how do you get the cheapest good to the right place, given that there may be disruption. But in general, what's very, very special, I believe, about our partnership is we're going to be able to move 2x, and I think in the future even faster. So you get a much, much faster, and actually because you can control it in a more granular way, much faster, much cheaper. And then the macro thing that I'm actually most excited about, which for our country is, because of that, you can do manufacturing in America, you can make the worker stronger and better, and you have more competition because you can use open weight models, open source models. You can use any hyperscaler. You can decide not to use a hyperscaler. This is much, much better for America, much better for workers, much better for industry. It's cheaper, it's faster, and obviously they have one of the world's top tech teams, and we work very well with them.
So Jensen, just in regards to that collaboration, then who would actually be procuring the hardware? Is this like a company like Lowe's? Do they have to put the upfront cost, with their existing GPUs and then working with Palantir? Is that how it works? Or
first of all, it's amazing to think that the Palantir Ontology platform has achieved all of this, and they're the fastest enterprise growing platform in the world. In a lot of ways, it gives enterprises what we all want, which is intelligence and the ability to make good decisions fast. And now we're going to supercharge it with NVIDIA's accelerated computing for the first time. And so NVIDIA's CUDA accelerated computing is going to get integrated. We're going to be able to put NVIDIA's AI libraries on top of that and open source model that we're working on together into the Ontology platform. And you'll run it in the cloud, any cloud, or you run it on-prem or even a private cloud. And so, as you know, NVIDIA runs everywhere. And so you could buy a server from HP or Dell. You could be in another country and you want to set up your own private cloud. We got no trouble with that. And so it doesn't matter. We run everywhere, and Palantir runs everywhere.
But you're talking about the future then. So this isn't something that would be accretive to revenues just in the near term. You're still working it out. And I know Lowe's is an example, but are there other customers?
Well, at Palantir, we just do what's best for our customers. We work downstream for value creation. So we believe, we know when it's faster, better, more accurate, and more flexible, and creates a better future for them because they can choose how they want to run their applications. We'll do very well. And at Palantir, we're doing very well on revenue and profit, and that's not actually our primary motivation now. And the reason we've done so well on profit and on growth is because you just have to create value. This creates more value for the end user.
But you just said before, too, that the human may not even be involved with some of these decisions. And I guess that is a major concern in this day and age, that AI efficiencies could take away from or displace the job force. So couldn't something like this collaboration do that?
It's interesting. When you say humans don't have to be in the loop, that doesn't inherently mean there aren't cases where humans need to be in the loop. For example, 40 years ago, we had 40x more manufacturing jobs than we have now. So it's like you can make more manufacturing jobs, which are humans, working class humans. You can build things you couldn't build in the past. And those humans become more and more valuable than they were in the past. In the defense context, you have situations where humans have to be in the loop, offense, situations where humans shouldn't be in the loop, like defense. Our collaboration makes all those use cases better for workers, for manufacturing, for defense, for offense, and in general, because it allows people to use any kind of model, any kind of compute structure. It makes America stronger and better.
Whenever a business is more productive, whenever they can move faster, their business grows. They hire more people. And so I think this idea that AI is going to take jobs is going to change everyone's job. That's for sure. But I think it's going to make companies more productive. We're more productive today because of AI. We're hiring more people.
And Alex, do you feel like any outcomes for the end of this week? I know you're heading, to Asia right after this. Do you feel like there could be a more positive outcome from the trade talks, because it seems like the market's perceiving that. All of the CEOs I've spoken to at this event too are very, very bullish that there might be some good news. So maybe you guys both know something that we don't, that you could share.
And we're going to tell you.
Yes, right now on TV.
No, look, I don't want to just make this about our partnership, but if you already have a dominant position, a profitable position, a position that is growing in both cases in a kind of way that is not what people have seen in the past, and you somehow create more value for your customers, that is incredible for our customers, it's incredible for our country, and it's not so bad for us.
And Palantir is the most technically deep enterprise platform company in the world. And this collaboration is just going to supercharge that.
And I will end it, but I did ask about China. So is there any way that you believe that you're going to be getting grants for licenses? Or?
Well, I think the important thing to take away is that we need to win developers all over the world. And there are so many open source developers in China. I think it's a mistake not to have them build on American tech. So that's number one. Number two, we all agree that we want America to win. The only question is what's our strategy in doing so. And one of the best frameworks that I've heard is David Sachs talking about, imagine 5 years from now, where do we want, suppose American technology was around the world, where do we want American technology market share to be? Do you want it to be 80% or do you want it to be 20%? And he believes, and I believe, that we want the world to be built on American tech standards. We want the same thing that happened in the good old days when we first started wireless technology, and it's no longer built on American standards. And we really want to go back to those days, and AI is ours to lose. Just as Alex was talking about earlier, we have the chips, we have the infrastructure, we have the technology, we have the models, we have the people. This is ours, and we will have the power. This is ours to lose, and we just got to get on top of it and make it happen.
And you believe that is going to happen, that the tides are changing and the relationships with other countries are working out quite well, including China. And so is that something that you're telling me right now?
That's something that only the president could solve. And if there's anybody who could solve it, I'm certain the president will be the one to do it.
We're just building technology.
Yeah.
We're building technology. We want to be in the strongest position we can be in. And we're repped by a president who seems to be extraordinarily good at figuring out how to make deals. You saw the peace treaty in the Middle East, which I don't think anyone else could have done. You've seen it. In my humble opinion, you see what his reactions abroad, including his sanctioning of our response to Iran. And we're in the factory building the best tools in the world, and that should give everyone an advantage.
And the important thing is China is out of NVIDIA's forecast. If anything happens,
I know, you said zero, right?
It's zero, and if the president pulls out a miracle, and it'll just be a bonus for the country.
And a bonus for a lot of investors who are very excited about how your share price has both done, both of you. And I'd like to end on that positive note. Thank you guys for joining us. And
I want to try and understand something you mentioned very briefly, which is the strategic importance of not just the equity stake, but the partnership on technology, and not just for NVIDIA, but for America. Why are you moving into this domain? One,
we announced a brand new platform for a new market we've never been in. And so that's number one. Number two, if we take advantage of this transition from general purpose computing to accelerated computing, from old types of software to AI, we can take advantage of this transition of AI and 6G for America to win back telecommunications again. It's been a long time since the American telecommunication network has been built on American technology.
You used the word national security, I believe. For
national security reasons, for economic reasons, our industry should be built on American technology, and for the very first time, we can do that. We have a brand new product line that takes advantage of computing, accelerated computing, and AI, and we have a great partner to help us do it with, Nokia.
The market reaction kind of speaks for itself. There was a time when Nokia was already looking to America. You've been in the role since April, but may I start by asking you what role the administration played in bringing you both together, if this is indeed a strategic priority?
I don't think there was anything specific that the administration did, other than they've created the environment to support innovation. I mean, Jensen's talked about manufacturing, but it's also about R&D and innovation and technology leadership. And if you think about where this world is going, and all those incredible devices are going to be built on NVIDIA platforms, robotics, autonomous vehicles, augmented reality, virtual reality, we need a different kind of network in the future. And that's what we realized. And that's why we wanted to forge this partnership, so that we're building a network leveraging AI for AI services, and that's really the big change here.
And the technology is flowing both ways. I mean, what is it that you will be able to do with Nokia, Jensen, that you weren't able to do on your own?
Well, first of all, Nokia is in all of the world's base stations. And this AirScale platform of Nokia is in millions of base stations around the world. If our computers are not inside that base station, it doesn't help. It's no different than NVIDIA's tech computing platforms not inside a car, it doesn't help. And so the first thing is we need a partner to get us into the world's space stations. We also, remember, we're bringing AI to radio networks, AI to RAN, so that we can make wireless tech communications a lot more efficient. Second, we're bringing AI for the radio, meaning on top of these radio networks and these telecommunication network, we're going to be able to provide AI services, which is going to be able to make it easier for us to do robotics and autonomous vehicles and industrial automation and reach all of the different places around the world. That's kind of hard to do with Wi-Fi. Cellular reaches everything. And so we now have this fabric that we can deploy AI computing services on top of. It's going to be completely revolutionary.
In your world and in your market, Huawei is an influential player, not just in Europe, I think also about the Middle East and Africa. How important is the relationship with NVIDIA to be able to counter, what Huawei does in those markets?
Yeah, look, I think for us, one of the principles I've had with my team since coming in has been do what we can do that no one else can do, and that is AirScale, what we do with any RAN software, the software that runs on it that we're going to be putting on the NVIDIA ARC platform. That do what we can do well and partner with the best everywhere else. And this is a clear opportunity to partner with the best. And by the way, that's where America and the Western world succeeds, because we don't necessarily have one company doing everything like Huawei. We succeed because we partner aggressively. And if you watch GTT today, it was hard to not find it obvious that you're partnering with everybody. But that's the advantage, is this partnership. So we do what we do best. We let NVIDIA do what they do best, and ultimately our customers win. And ultimately, for America, I think America will win because there'll be more innovation faster.
Nobody knows telecommunications better than Nokia. They've been at it for a long time. They're all over the world. And between our two partnerships, we now have wireless telecommunications, we have AI, and we have accelerated computing, all in this partnership. And so all of that capability is going to be brought to bear for the next generation of 6G. And I think that's the capabilities we bring together in this partnership is quite unique and formidable.
Why was it important, Jensen, that NVIDIA ends up with almost 3% of Nokia? What was the rationale behind that?
The work that we're doing is so intensive, and quite frankly, I was so optimistic about it and so excited about it, and that we wanted to invest in Nokia so that we could be part of this incredible success that we're creating together. And I got to tell you, that move was pretty genius, wouldn't you say?
That's not for me to comment on. What I'd observe is, a 25% jump in the ADRs. What does that signal to you? NVIDIA, with respect, Jensen, I've known to be about speed. Is it that they're giving you a technology that you wouldn't otherwise have, or have you now a way of just moving faster?
Yeah, it's both. I mean, there's obviously, there's no way we're going to have NVIDIA's technology and accelerated computing. I mean, the CUDA software stack, all of the capabilities, even the fundamentals of what's in Ariel, the software stack that NVIDIA has built, is an accelerator for us. And then it's about speed, because now we can innovate much faster. And for us, it's that shift into adding value in software and thinking more like a software company, or really not like a software company, like an application company that's going to use AI and AI models to continue to innovate and move faster. And I think the market recognizes that this is the kind of innovation that this industry has needed. Look, this industry has a history. 3G, we were building better voice networks when the internet was getting started. 4G, 5G, we were building data networks behind where the market was. And today, 5G, when you look at it globally, is still only partially deployed. So as you look ahead, in order to innovate, you've got to move much faster. And we need to enable our customers to have different and better technology.
And with this partnership, all of us, speaking of speed, we're in Blackwell today. It's going to go to Rubin, it's going to go Feynman, and it's going to go on a clip that basically is at the speed of light.
When do we see a real world manifestation of the work that you're both going to do together?
Yep, there's work going already. You can see a demo actually at the booth here in GTC. You'll also see customer trials early next year, and then we think in full commercial production in 27. And the great thing about the partnership with Jensen is I know he'll be pushing me to go faster, and I'll be pushing his team to go faster, and together that means that we can get to market as soon as practical for our customers.
And ARC is backwards compatible with AirScale.
Right.
And all of those millions of base stations could be upgraded to 6G and AI.
There's a lot of skepticism on 6G though, right? Like, we're agreeing standards. Just a simple yes or no question, really. Is the 6G timeline accelerated because of this partnership?
I think it is, because what you can actually do now is, exactly to what Jensen said, you can deploy with ARC, and then if something happens or the standard evolves or there's changes, it'll just be a software model update that we deploy in applications. It's a completely different model than what we're used to back in the days of deploying these complex integrated legacy appliances. It's general purpose accelerated computing, and that's why we think it's so compelling.
If the standards change, you got to go fix a chip. If the standards change, you're just and I just upgrade the software, the CUDA software. That's the amazing thing.
And joining us now exclusively to discuss the partnership, AMD Chair and CEO Lisa Su. Lisa, I know I'm tired of congratulating you. I mean, it's getting ridiculous at this point, but I'll do it again. Congratulations to Lisa Su.
Good morning, Jim. Good morning, David. Good morning, Carl. Great to be here with you guys this morning.
Well, let's talk about this deal. This sounds like something that I would never expect from the government. It is almost like TVA. It's the government saying, listen, we can't wait. We have to do this, and we have to do it now. And it sounds like we have to do it now because you're able to deliver something, next year? Is it really can be done that fast?
Absolutely, Jim. So we were super excited to announce a new partnership with the Department of Energy. Secretary Wright has been really leading this, with such an ambitious vision of what we want to do in AI for this country. So we announced 2 new supercomputers that use our latest generation AI technology. And the key is, the focus from Secretary Wright was, let's do this as fast as possible. We have so many researchers in the nation that want more computing. And so, yes, we're going to develop 2 supercomputers. One of them will be deployed early next year, and then the other one will be deployed with our next generation MI400 series. So fantastic partnership, and I'm really excited to be able to contribute to this really important mission.
I don't mean to belittle it, but I got to talk a little horse race. I think the MI400 is in some ways equal to NVIDIA. I want to know whether this was a contest and you got this and NVIDIA did not.
Well, as you know, Jim, I mean, this is a place where the national labs are truly a national treasure for the United States. Oak Ridge National Labs has been a great partner for AMD, and you can imagine everybody would want their compute in the national labs. So MI400 series is fantastic. We've been working across the board, across all industries, all of the national labs, all the sovereign countries, and I'm super excited to be able to deploy both our current generation MI355 and our next generation MI430 at the Oak Ridge National Labs through these 2 supercomputers.
Absolutely. What caught my eye in the AMD release is that this is not just for traditional supercomputing for tech. This energy, medicine, health, national security, this to me sounds like a government initiative to stay ahead of everybody else in the world in all of these verticals, not just traditional data center compute. Can you tell us how, if I were, say, Thermo Fisher, or if I were Eli Lilly, I would be able to get into this and say, I want some of that compute power?
You're absolutely right, Jim. This is actually a non-traditional partnership between the government and industry. What we thought to do was, number one, we want to get as much compute as possible, as quickly as possible to the national labs. And they're going to do all kinds of research in medicine and energy and national security, which is wonderful. But we also said, there are industries that would, private industries that would like access to some of this compute as well. So the Eli Lillys of the world, the Thermo Fishers, all of these folks would also be able to participate as we bring up these clusters. And it is a very unique partnership. I would say, Secretary Wright said it best. This is the first time that he's announcing something where, the very first time I met Secretary Wright, he said, hey, bring me ideas, Lisa. Bring me ideas that get us more AI in the government faster. And I have to say, he was very open. We love the partnership with Oak Ridge National Labs. Our engineers and scientists are really, really excited about contributing at the national scale for our U.S. AI efforts.
The other big story, Lisa, that made news regarding you guys in recent days was IBM saying about 4 days ago that one of their key quantum algos run on chips from you that are pretty commonly available, and it's raised a lot of questions about the possibility of commercializing those powerful computers.
Well, we are also very excited about the partnership with IBM. And in general, when you think about quantum computing, people were thinking that quantum is, it's going to take years to develop. And when you really think about it, we're not in a place where we can wait years for these developments. We want these developments, really making a difference now. IBM and AMD announced this quantum computing partnership. Our researchers have been working together. And the key is we're going to take the best of classical compute or traditional compute, which is what we've spent all of this research and development on, and the best of IBM's quantum computing, and really putting them side by side in applications. So thinking about how we solve the biggest material science problems, how we think about some of the biggest energy problems. And this is an area where again, when I think about the work that we're going to do with DOE, I think it's going to continue. It's going to be across all of these fields, including how do we get quantum used in these new workloads as soon as possible. So this is kind of the world that we're in with compute today. It's all about speed and how do we get the most compute on the most important challenges as soon as possible.
Lisa, it's David. Just sort of more broadly speaking here, it's not as though other companies aren't developing plenty of chips as well, whether it's Amazon with the Trainium or Google and the TPUs and Meta. I'm just sort of curious from your perspective in terms of especially the inference market, but over time here, does the addressable market for AMD start to shrink as a result of all these potential competitors?
David, actually, it's exactly the opposite. I think what we're seeing is that the addressable market for AI and inference is actually increasing. We're seeing an acceleration of the use of AI, because as models get better, as enterprises are thinking about how they can deploy these models, there's a lot more compute that's necessary, and we're seeing that across the board with the CapEx spending as well as in our direct conversations with customers. And David, I think the most important thing for people to recognize is a big market is good for all of us. That has been our mantra, is to develop technology that can go across all of these verticals. And I love seeing our technology in the national labs and also across all of these enterprises and the cloud.
Let's frame the opportunity, Lisa. The market reaction is very clear, but for AMD and the AI industry at large, what do you think this represents?
Well, look, this is a huge milestone for AMD. We are so thrilled with the partnership with the OpenAI team. And it's also, a huge moment for the AI industry because, when you get to the right down to it, you need more AI compute. I mean, that's where we are today. Compute is the foundation for all of the intelligence we can get from AI. And, we are a compute provider. We have spent years on our roadmap. We've spent years working with OpenAI and the team. And, together now we're embarking on, a massive build out of 6 gigawatts of AI compute. And it's a big deal for us, for our shareholders, for our teams, and for really, the partnership and the overall AI ecosystem.
Greg, I said at the top, the focus is inference. I think that's really important to be specific about what you will do with this capacity. So literally explain that part. And I'm conscious that, in the first instance, the first target is 1 gigawatt and then eventually 6 gigawatts. But what will you use it for?
Well, I think that the world continues to underestimate the amount of demand for AI compute, right? We've seen this explosion of demand with things like ChatGPT. We're at 800 million weekly active users now. This product didn't even exist 3 years ago. And we're in a position where we cannot launch features, we cannot launch new products simply because of lack of computational power. And we see these models continuing to get exponentially better. And I think we're just heading to a world where so much of the economy is going to be lifted up and driven by progress in AI. And so we're very much heading to a world by default that I think looks like a compute desert, right? That there's just not enough compute to go around. And so we're trying to build as much as possible, as quickly as possible. So we're starting with 1 gigawatt simply because you got to start somewhere.
Right.
But honestly, we're building as fast as we possibly can and trying to bring as much computational power to bear for the economy and for the world.
Lisa, this is such a big commitment to Instinct in particular. As a customer, does it make OpenAI the largest for that particular product?
Well, this is certainly the largest deployment that we have announced by far. I mean, 6 gigawatts of compute. As Greg said, we're going to start with the first gigawatt in the second half of 2026 on our new next generation MI450 chip. I think the thing to understand is, these types of partnerships actually take years to really get comfortable with the idea that we're going to go all in together, and this is an all-in partnership in terms of building out the AI compute that OpenAI needs for everything that they're offering to the world. So yes, it's a huge deal, and it also says a lot about how much needs to come together for this entire ecosystem to operate. So we are setting up. Certainly there's a lot of engineering work, but our teams are working together on hardware, software. We're ensuring the supply chain, all of those elements are set up and ready to deliver on this massive commitment.
Greg, talk us through a little bit about the players that you need to also lean on. This has been years in the making, as you say, with AMD, but what other cloud providers are involved? How are you thinking about this working with an Oracle or others out there?
Yeah, we really think of this as an industry-wide effort. And in general, we think that compute is something that does require the entire supply chain to really wake up and to really to start building much more than people were planning on. I think this starts from energy to try to get far more power to be built. Things like nuclear, I think, are going to be very important to come online. The cloud providers are an important part of this as well. So we're going to be deploying AMD in our own data centers. We'll be deploying them together with cloud providers. We have a deal with Oracle, lots of other cloud providers out there. You can really see that we're very much in we just want compute, as much compute as possible. We think this is important for the economy. We think this is important for the nation. We think this is important for humanity. And so really we're working with everyone in this whole industry in order to get as much compute power online as quickly as we can.
Lisa, I'm sorry, specifics. Where is this data center going to be? Is it one single site? Is it Oracle that will partner with you on this?
Well, actually, what this really is an announcement of what AMD and OpenAI are going to do together. OpenAI has a lot of partners in terms of where they deploy. I imagine a lot of it will be in cloud service providers. It's really up to OpenAI and Greg and Sam and the team. But the way to think about it is for this amount of compute, it's going to have to be in a lot of different places. I mean, it's a massive amount.
Multiple locations.
Multiple locations. Right? I would imagine multiple providers to really get this online as fast as possible.
Greg, there is a lot of focus on where OpenAI is going to get the money from to fund all of this. Sam Altman's big picture commitment is well documented, right? And the numbers are, to his mind, are in the trillions. But have you specifically thought about debt financing for this relationship with AMD? Have you thought about doing a specific equity raise? You are very committed across multiple projects.
Yeah, look, the way that I would look at this is that AI revenue is growing faster than I think almost any product in history. And that ultimately, at the end of the day, the reason this compute power is so important, is so worthwhile for everyone to build, is because the revenue ultimately will be there. Now, as a company that is trying to move as fast as we can, we look at everything, right? We look at equity, debt, we look at trying to find creative ways of financing all of this. That's been actually a huge focus of us for the past couple of years, is thinking about how can we possibly build the amount of compute that is required in order to really transform this whole economy into an AI-powered economy. And so I think you'll see lots of creative ideas, but fundamentally, I think at the end of the day, it is because we believe that
I'm sorry to jump in and interrupt, and Caro, just forgive me on this one. The condition of AMD issuing the stock to OpenAI requires you to spend money, basically, because you have to deliver that gigawatt of capacity first. Lisa, I have to ask you if you have assurances that OpenAI is good for it.
Well, let me be clear. I mean, this deal is a win for AMD, it's a win for OpenAI, and it's a win for our shareholders. And that's kind of the way we put this together. I have full confidence in OpenAI, Sam, Greg, Sarah. I mean, this is a massive opportunity for us. Right now, right here, it's about who has the most compute and how fast can we get it online. And we're committing to doing this together. And the fact is, as OpenAI buys chips, that's great for AMD. Our revenue goes up, our earnings go up. We expect that it will also be very, very accretive to our shareholders from day one. And as we do that, we're very happy to have OpenAI as a deep partner, and we win together. So it's like a virtuous, positive cycle in how we build out, this big vision for having all this compute out there.
Right. And yet we still question, as you were just talking about, Greg, some of the other supply chain elements. You're talking about the need for nuclear, for power. What's really interesting is are you feeling confident enough about the rest of the compute, the supply chain is there? Is this going to be US manufactured from your perspective, or are you looking at also building out internationally with AMD?
Yeah, we've been looking at really all options. Our preference and really the core thing that we try to do is build as much as possible in the U.S. And you can see the commitments that we've made over the past year. $500 billion of investment in the U.S. and that's not stopping. We're continuing to build. I do think that international it is also going to be important for the world to have compute. I think that compute is going to become this like national security strategic resource, and every country is going to need computational power. And so that we are really not limiting our sort of sites in terms of where to build, but we do think it is important that the U.S. leads in this technology, leads in computational power, and we're expanding the supply chain. But you can see that we've really been working with partners across the globe in order to actually meet the demand that we expect to be coming in upcoming years.
Lisa, the manufacturing of these chips, will you look to Intel at all for it, do you think, in the future?
Well, as you know, the supply chain is something that we work on, very meticulously. I think we have a very strong supply chain. We're certainly deeply partnered with, TSMC across the supply chain. Just to that earlier question, we're absolutely prioritizing building in the United States because I think that's super important. This is the U.S. AI stack. We want to have as much of it in the U.S. as possible, and we continue to really look at how do we ensure that there will be a strong supply chain going forward.
Greg, Sam posted on X that this deal with AMD is incremental to what's already being done with NVIDIA. But as Lisa knows, I've spent quite a lot of time looking at the MI family and the newer generations of products to come. Is there a very clear, specific benefit to using AMD technology for inference relative to the capabilities of NVIDIA? Or do you just see it broadly as some sort of diversifying factor?
Well, I would look at it this way, that there's a huge fixed cost to getting AI models running on any platform. And so that when we look at what's out there, that actually getting AI training to work is a huge amount of lift. That's something we've really only done the work for NVIDIA. But for inference, that's something that's much more, that there's a easier barrier to entry there. And one thing we found is that I think that the work that Lisa and team have been doing on the MI450 series, it's looking like it's going to be a really incredible chip. I think that there's the way that these things work is that there's niches for different balances of memory and computational power. And so as we have a diversity of workloads, we're finding that having a diversity of chips also really accelerates what we're able to do.
Lisa, at the beginning of this conversation, I said there are both operational and financial milestones to be met. And Greg explained you got to start somewhere. So in the first instance, 1 gigawatt. But would you just sort of draw out the pathway to that first gigawatt? It seems like you're prepared to move quickly here.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe, Ed, if I can just build on something that Greg said. I think he's absolutely right. We're a believer in there's a diversity of workloads, and there will be a diversity of workloads across customers, models, use cases. And from that standpoint, we feel really good about how we're positioned. We love the work here because, frankly, OpenAI is the ultimate power user of our chips and tests us in very good ways. So I think that's what gives us confidence that the technology is there. And then to your point about milestones, yes, I mean this is clearly a case where we are tied to each other. The first gigawatt of deployment is super important. We're going to start that, second half of next year, and we're going to build on from there. And it really is not just the technology, but commercial milestones, adoption milestones, and just how we proliferate the capability going forward. But I'm looking forward to building this as fast as possible. We're already working with a number of cloud service providers who are also very active on our technology, and I think this is a great catalyst to get the industry to build faster.
Tied to each other is such an interesting turn of phrase. And Greg, look, you are seeing more AI users and chip makers and designers becoming more financially tied to each other. Is this going to continue? Is this the step forward for how you see this financing going forward?
Well, I really see the world transitioning to this AI-powered economy. And the interesting thing is within OpenAI that we've really seen what it's like when your progress is limited and accelerated as two sides of the coin by computational power. Like teams within OpenAI, that their ability to deliver really is tied to the amount of compute that they get. And I think we're heading to a world where that is how the whole economy will function. And we're starting to see it, right? That people having access to better AI tools, if you're a coder, you're able to do far more if you have access to better AI models. And we're heading to a world where if you can have 10 times as much AI power behind you, you will probably be 10 times more productive. And so I think that we're moving to a world where the whole industry is waking up to the fact that we have just not planned. We have not planned for this moment where this explosion in AI demand is happening. So it's happening all the way from the power to the silicon. And I think this whole industry has to find a way to actually rise to meet the occasion.
Lisa, you have given us a look into the future before about how you see the total addressable market, the industry. Now that the ink is dry with OpenAI and Greg, are you rethinking either your bigger picture analysis of the market for AI accelerators and GPUs, or do you see AMD now having an improved position in that market, relative, of course, to your friends at NVIDIA?
Well, again, I think, and I've told you before, I believe that this is a huge market. We have sized just the AI accelerator TAM being, over $500 billion in TAM over the next few years. I think some might say, maybe I was a little conservative in that TAM analysis. But the way to think about it is there's so much need from compute. I mean, you just heard it from Greg. So, this is a huge pie, and you're going to see the need for, more players coming into it. And, from my standpoint, this is a big validation of our technology and our capability. As much as we love the work with OpenAI, we're working with a lot of other customers as well. There's a lot of excitement in the industry around MI450. So we're ready for it.
We'll just start with your investment, Satya. Microsoft started investing in 2019, has invested in the ballpark of $13-14 billion into OpenAI. And for that, you get 27% of the business, ownership in the business on a fully diluted basis. I think it was about a third, and you took some dilution over the course of last year with all the investment. So does that sound about right in terms of ownership?
Yeah, it does. But I would say before even our stake in it, Brad, I think what's pretty unique about OpenAI is the fact that as part of OpenAI's process of restructuring, one of the largest nonprofit gets created. I mean, let's not forget that, in some sense, I say at Microsoft, we are very proud of the fact that we're associated with the two of the largest nonprofits, the Gates Foundation and now the OpenAI Foundation. So that's, I think, the big news. We obviously are thrilled. It's not what we thought. And as I said to somebody, it's not like when we first invested our $1 billion that, this is going to be the 100 bagger that I'm going to be talking about to VCs about. But here we are. But we are very thrilled to be an investor and an early backer. And it's really a testament to what Sam and team have done, quite frankly. I mean, they obviously had the vision early about what this technology could do, and they ran with it and just executed, in a masterful way.
Yeah, I think this has really been an amazing partnership through every phase. We had kind of no idea where it was all going to go when we started, as Satya said. But I think this is one of the great tech partnerships ever. And certainly without Microsoft, and particularly Satya's early conviction, we would not have been able to do this. I don't think there were a lot of other people that would have been willing to take that kind of a bet, given what the world looked like at the time. We didn't know exactly how the tech was going to go. Well, not exactly. We didn't know at all how the tech was going to go. We just had a lot of conviction in this one idea of pushing on deep learning and trusting that if we could do that, we'd figure out ways to make wonderful products and create a lot of value. And also, as Satya said, create what we believe will be the largest nonprofit ever. And I think it's going to do amazingly great things. I really like this structure because it lets the nonprofit grow in value while the PBC is able to get the capital that it needs to keep scaling. I don't think the nonprofit would be able to be this valuable if we didn't come up with the structure and if we didn't have partners around the table that were excited for it to work this way. But, I think it's been more than 6 years since we first started this partnership, and a pretty crazy amount of achievement for 6 years, and I think much more to come. I hope that Satya makes $1 trillion on the investment, not $100 billion. Whatever it is.
Let's keep busting through the deal. So models and exclusivity. Sam, OpenAI can distribute its models, its leading models on Azure, but I don't think you can distribute them on any other the big clouds for 7 years until 2032. But that would end earlier if AGI is verified. We can come back to that. But you can distribute your open source models, Sora, agents, codecs, wearables, everything else on other platforms. So, Sam, I assume this means no ChatGPT or GPT-6 on Amazon or Google.
No, so we have first of all, we want to do lots of things together to help, create value for Microsoft. We want them to do lots of things to create value for us. And there are many, many things that'll happen in that category. We are keeping what Satya termed once, and I think it's a great phrase, of stateless APIs on Azure exclusively through 2030, and everything else we're gonna, distribute elsewhere. And that's obviously in Microsoft's interest too. So we'll put lots of products, lots of places, and then this thing we'll do on Azure, and people can get it there or via us, and I think that's great.
And then the rev share, there's still a rev share that gets paid by OpenAI to Microsoft on all your revenues that also runs until 2032 or until AGI is verified. So let's just assume, for the sake of argument, I know this is pedestrian, but it's important, that the rev share is 15%. So that would mean if you had $20 billion in revenue, that you're paying $3 billion to Microsoft, and that counts as revenue to Azure. Satya, does that sound about right?
Yeah, we have a rev share, and I think as you characterized it, is either going to AGI or till the end of the term. And I actually don't know exactly where we count it, quite honestly, whether it goes into Azure or somewhere else. That's a good question. It's a good question for Amy.
Given that both exclusivity and the rev share end early in the case AGI is verified, it seems to make AGI a pretty big deal. And as I understand it, if OpenAI claimed AGI, it sounds like it goes to an expert panel, and you guys basically select a jury who's got to make a relatively quick decision whether or not AGI has been reached. Satya, you said on yesterday's earnings call that nobody's even close to getting to AGI, and you don't expect it to happen anytime soon. You talked about this spiky and jagged intelligence. Sam, I've heard you perhaps sound a little bit more bullish on, when we might get to AGI. So I guess the question is to you both, do you worry that over the next 2 or 3 years, we're going to end up having to call in the jury to effectively make a call on whether or not we've hit AGI?
I realize you've got to try to make some drama between us here. I think putting a process in place for this is a good thing to do. I expect that the technology will take several surprising twists and turns, and we will continue to be good partners to each other and figure out what makes sense.
That's well said. I think, and that's one of the reasons why I think this process we put in place is a good one. And at the end of the day, I'm a big believer in the fact that intelligence capability-wise is going to continue to improve. And our real goal, quite frankly, is that, which is how do you put that in the hands of people and organizations so that they can get the maximum benefits? And that was the original mission of OpenAI that attracted me to OpenAI and Sam and team. And that's kind of what we plan to continue on.
Brad, to say the obvious, if we had superintelligence tomorrow, we would still want Microsoft's help getting this product out into people's hands. And we want them,
Of course. Yeah, no, again, I'm asking the questions I know that are on people's minds, and that makes a ton of sense to me. Obviously, Microsoft is one of the largest distribution platforms in the world. You guys have been great partners for a long time, but I think it dispels some of the myths that are out there. But let's shift gears a little bit. Obviously, OpenAI is one of the fastest growing companies in history. Satya, you said on the pod a year ago, this pod, that every new phase shift creates a new Google. And the Google of this phase shift is already known, and it's OpenAI. And none of this would have been possible had you guys not made these huge bets. With all that said, OpenAI's revenues are still a reported $13 billion in 2025. And Sam, on your live stream this week, you talked about this massive commitment to compute, right? 1.4 trillion over the next 4 or 5 years with, big commitments, $500 million to NVIDIA, $300 million to AMD and Oracle, $250 billion to Azure. So I think the single biggest question I've heard all week and hanging over the market is how can the company with $13 billion in revenues make 1.4 trillion of spend commitments? And you've heard the criticism,
First
Sam.
of all, we're doing well more revenue than that. Second of all, Brad, if you want to sell your shares, I'll find you a buyer. I just enough. Like, people are. I think there's a lot of people who would love to buy OpenAI shares. I don't think you would,
including myself, including myself.
People who talk with a lot of like breathless concern about our compute stuff or whatever that would be thrilled to buy shares. So I think we could sell, your shares or anybody else's to some of the people who are making the most noise on Twitter, whatever, about this very quickly. We do plan for revenue to grow steeply. Revenue is growing steeply. We are taking a forward bet that it's going to continue to grow, and that not only will ChatGPT keep growing, but we will be able to become one of the important AI clouds, that our consumer device business will be a significant and important thing, that AI that can automate science will create huge value. So, there are not many times that I want to be a public company, but one of the rare times it's appealing is when those people are writing these ridiculous OpenAI is about to go out of business and, whatever. I would love to tell them they could just short the stock, and I would love to see them get burned on that. But, we carefully plan. We understand where the technology, where the capability is going to go, and how the products we can build around that and the revenue we can generate. We might screw it up. Like, this is the bet that we're making, and we're taking a risk along with that. A certain risk is if we don't have the compute, we will not be able to generate the revenue or make the models at this kind of scale.
Exactly. And
let me just say one thing, Brad, as both a partner and an investor. There is not been a single business plan that I've seen from OpenAI that they're put in and not beaten it. So in some sense, this is the one place where, in terms of their growth and just even the business, it's been unbelievable execution, quite frankly. I mean, obviously, OpenAI, everyone talks about all the success in the usage and what have you. But even, I would say all up, the business execution has been just pretty unbelievable.